What if I told you there's a company that started in a living room with a simple but terrifying question, and in less than 5 years became worth $900 billion? More than Toyota, more than Walmart, more than Exxon. And the thing they built is not a rocket, not a drug, not a search engine. It's a mind, an artificial mind named Claude. And as of right now, in 2026, Claude is the artificial intelligence that over 70% of Fortune 100 companies trust for their most critical work. Not ChatGPT, not Gemini. Claude. Today we're going to go deep. The origin story nobody talks about. The models most people don't know exist. The technology that scared the Pentagon so badly they tried to ban it. The revenue numbers that broke every record in Silicon Valley history. And why some of the smartest investors on earth believe Anthropic could become the most valuable company ever built. This is not a product review. This is the full story. Let's go. The rupture at OpenAI. To understand Claude, you need to understand the rupture. It was 2020. OpenAI was riding high. GPT-3 had just launched and the world was losing its mind. But inside OpenAI, a quiet conflict was building. Dario Amodei was one of the most important people there. His title was VP of Research. But his real job was thinking about something that made him deeply uncomfortable. What happens if we build something too powerful, too fast, and we can't control it? Dario had been working on scaling laws, the mathematical rules that predict how much smarter an AI gets when you throw more computing power at it. And the numbers were alarming. Not because the AI was failing, but because it was succeeding. The models kept getting better, faster than anyone predicted, and the safety research was not keeping up. Dario believed OpenAI was drifting. The pressure from investors and the race with Google was pulling the company toward speed, not safety. He wasn't alone. His sister Daniela Amodei, who ran operations, felt the same. So did 6 other researchers. Tom Brown, who helped write the original GPT-3 paper. Chrysalia, one of the most respected AI interpretability researchers in the world, and several others. In 2021, they made a decision. They would leave together and build something different. Not a lab races to be first, a lab that races to be right. They called it Anthropic. The name itself tells you everything. Anthropic. From the word anthropic, meaning relating to human existence. The company's entire mission was encoded in one word, I that serves humanity. That can be understood, controlled, trusted. On paper, it sounded idealistic. In practice, it turned out to be the most profitable bet in the history of technology. The first investments, when Anthropic launched, it needed money. A lot of it. Training frontier AI models costs hundreds of millions of dollars per run. Google moved first. Google saw something in Anthropic that it couldn't build fast enough internally. A safety-first AI company with world-class researchers and a credible mission. Google invested hundreds of millions and later up to $40 billion. Then Amazon made a move that nobody expected. Amazon committed to invest up to $25 billion in Anthropic. And in exchange, Anthropic got something more valuable than cash. They got 5 gigawatts of computing capacity. 5 gigawatts. To put that in perspective, that's enough electricity to power roughly 1 million homes. That's the infrastructure you need to train models that can change civilization. And it didn't stop there. In February 2026, Anthropic closed a $30 billion Series G funding round, valued at $380 billion. Then in May 2026, reports emerged that Anthropic was exploring a new round at a valuation approaching $900 billion. That would put Anthropic ahead of OpenAI in private market rankings. From 0 to 900 billion in 5 years. No company in recorded history has ever done that. What is Claude? So, what exactly is Claude? Claude is a family of large language models, the AI systems that power everything Anthropic built. But calling Claude a large language model is like calling a piano a wooden box with strings. Technically accurate, completely missing the point. Claude was designed from day one around a radical idea. Most AI systems are trained to predict what words should come next. They optimize for sounding correct. Claude was trained to think about what the right answer actually is and to refuse when refusing is the right choice. That difference in philosophy created a different personality. Users noticed immediately. Claude Fatful, less likely to hallucinate confidently, more likely to say, I am not sure. Developers noticed something else. Claude could hold an entire code base in its mind at once, not just a function, not just a file, an entire project. Thousands of lines across dozens of files, all at once. That capability, called context length, became Claude's first superpower, and it changed everything about how engineers work with AI. The revenue nobody predicted, let me give you the numbers, because they are extraordinary. At the start of 2025, Anthropic was generating about $1 billion in annualized revenue. By August 2025, the number was 5 billion. By December 2025, 9 billion. By February 2026, 14 billion. By April 2026, 30 billion. In 1 year, Anthropic grew 30 times over, the fastest revenue growth of any company in recorded history. Faster than Salesforce, faster than Zoom, faster than anything. And here's the most important part: 80% of that revenue comes from enterprise customers, not from curious consumers asking Claude to write poems. From banks, hospitals, law firms, and Fortune 500 companies paying serious money for serious AI. Over 300,000 business customers in total. More than 1,000 companies spending over $1 million per year on Claude. 70% of Fortune 100 companies using Claude in production. These are not pilot programs. These are production deployments, mission critical systems, the kind of software that runs the world. The model family. Now, let's get into the actual technology, because this is where things get fascinating. Anthropic builds Claude in a three-tier family: Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus. Think of them as economy, business class, and first class. Haiku is the fast, cheap, efficient model, perfect for customer support bots, quick responses, lightweight automation. When you need speed and low cost, Haiku is your model. Sonnet is where things get interesting. This became the model that shocked the entire industry, because Sonnet doesn't just beat other companies' mid-tier models. In February 2026, Claude Sonnet 4.6 became the first mid-tier model in history to outperform the previous generation's flagship uncoding benchmark. Think about that. The affordable version beating the most expensive competition. That's not an incremental improvement. That's a structural shift. And 70% of developers who tried Sonnet 4.6 preferred it over Sonnet 4.5. Even compared to the much more expensive Opus 4.5 from the previous generation, 59% of developers preferred Sonnet. That's the sweet spot. Opus level intelligence at Sonnet pricing. Then there's Opus. Claude Opus 4.7, released in April 2026, is Anthropic's current flagship, and the numbers are staggering. It scores 80% on SWE bench verified. That is the gold standard benchmark for AI coding ability. No other model from any company comes close. But it's not just the coding score. Opus 4.7 has 3 times the image resolution of its predecessor. It self-verifies its own outputs, and it introduces something called the X high effort level, which tells the model to slow down, think harder, and work longer on the problem. And then there's one more model, a model that Anthropic built, but refuses to release to the public. Claude Mythos, the AI too powerful to release in March 2026. Something unusual happened. Draft blog posts from Anthropic were leaked online. They contained references to a model called Claude Mythos. The internet went wild. What was Mythos? Why had no one heard of it? Anthropic confirmed it on April 7th, 2026. Claude Mythos is real, and it is the most capable AI model ever created. It scored 77.8% on SWE Benchmark, a benchmark so hard that most models can barely scratch 40%. Claude Mythos was 20 percentage points ahead of the next best model on the planet. But here is what truly set it apart. Claude Mythos could find critical security vulnerabilities in major operating systems and web browsers autonomously, without human guidance. The UK AI Security Institute tested it on something called the last ones. A 32 steps cyber challenge so difficult it had never been solved end to end by any AI. Claude Mythos solved it 3 out of 10 times. No other model had ever solved it once. Mozilla gave Mythos access to Firefox's codebase. 2 weeks later, Mythos had found and helped patch 271 security vulnerabilities. 271. Anthropic looked at these results and made a decision. This model is too powerful for general release. Instead, they created Project Glasswing, a controlled program that gives access to Mythos only to 11 carefully selected companies working on critical infrastructure cyber custody. The model exists, it works, and Anthropic has decided the world is not ready for it yet. That decision will mean different things to different people, but it tells you something important about the kind of company Anthropic is. Claude Code, the billion-dollar command line now. Let's talk about the product that changed everything. Claude Code. Claude Code is a command line tool. You open a terminal, type a command, and Claude can read your entire code base, understand it, and start building. It launched as a standalone product in February 2025, became generally available in May 25. By November 2025, it was generating $1 billion in annualized revenue. By February 2026, $2.5 billion. For context, $2.5 billion in annualized revenue from a single command line makes Claude Code bigger than most publicly traded software companies. And the usage data is incredible. Daily installs grew from 17.7 million to 29 million in a matter of months. Enterprise subscriptions quadrupled in just the first 2 months of 2026. Coding now represents 51% of all enterprise generative AI usage. It is by far the most valuable use case in the market, and Claude Code owns it. Netflix uses it. Spotify uses it. PMG, PAL, Oriel, Salesforce. Deloitte rolled it out to 470,000 employees. But here is the number that really matters. As of February 2026, Claude Opus 4.6 has a 50% task completion rate at 14 hours and 30 minutes of unsupervised operation. Read that again. Tasks that would take a human engineer 14.5 hours. Claude completes at a 50% success rate with zero human supervision. When enterprise buyers see that number, they stop thinking about subscriptions. They stop thinking about headcount. You are no longer paying $20 a month for better autocomplete. You are paying 6 figures a year for a digital employee who never sleeps, never takes vacation, and never asks for a raise. That is why the revenue is growing 30 times in a year. Because enterprises are not buying software, they are buying labor. The Pentagon incident. Now we need to talk about the moment that changed how the world sees Anthropic. Since its founding, Anthropic had placed specific restrictions on how Claude could be used, weapons development, mass surveillance, autonomous lethal systems. These were off limits. In the contracts, this was called prohibiting use for fully autonomous weapons and domestic mass surveillance. For a while, various government agencies worked within those restrictions. Then in early 2026, the Pentagon came back with a demand: remove the restrictions, replace them with language that allows any lawful use. No limits on surveillance. No limits on weapons applications. Anthropic said no. The deadline passed. February 27th, 2026. Anthropic still said no. The Trump administration responded by designating Anthropic a supply chain risk, a designation never previously applied to any AI company in American history. Within hours of that designation, Claude became the #1 app in the App Store. Think about what happened. Enterprise legal teams and compliance officers suddenly had a story they could take to their boards. We used the AI company that said no to the Pentagon's surveillance demands. In a procurement meeting that is a differentiatory that no competitor can replicate, because replicating it would require turning down billions in government contracts. Anthropic turned it down anyway, and the market rewarded them for it. The technology behind Claude. Let's go deeper into the technology, because what makes Claude different isn't just the training data or the compute, it's the philosophy embedded in the architecture. Anthropic built something called constitutional AI. Here's how most AI training works. You generate outputs. Human reviewers say thumbs up or thumbs down. The model learns from that feedback. It gets better at producing outputs that humans rate highly. The problem? Humans have biases. Humans get tired. And you can only have so many human reviewers. Constitutional AI is different. Instead of relying solely on human feedback, Claude is trained against a written constitution, a set of principles and values that the model must follow. The model reads the constitution. It generates a response. Then it critiques its own response against the constitution. Then it revises over and over. The current Claude Constitution is 23,000 words long. It covers everything from how to handle sensitive topics to how to reason about harm to how to balance helpfulness with honesty. This self-critique loop produces a behavior that is more consistent, more predictable, and more resistant to manipulation than models trained only on human feedback. For regulated industries, this is not a feature. It is a requirement. A hospital deploying AI cannot afford surprises. A bank cannot afford hallucinations in financial advice. A law firm cannot afford an AI that says different things on different days. Constitutional AI gives enterprises something they desperately want: a model that behaves the same way every single time. The ecosystem. Anthropic is not just building models, they are building an entire ecosystem. Claude.ai is the consumer chatbot, the interface that anyone can use. Upload files, analyze documents, write code, do research, brainstorm ideas. Available in 159 countries. Strong in the United States, India, Japan, the United Kingdom, and South Korea. Then there is the API, the backbone of Enterprise Claude. This is how 300,000 business customers integrate Claude into their own applications. Customer support systems, legal document analysis, code review pipelines, medical record summarization, financial risk analysis. Then there are the specialized products. Claude for Excel. Claude reads your multi-tab financial model, explains every formula with cell-level citations, modifies assumptions while preserving formula dependencies, and connects to live market data through integrations with SP Global, Moody's FactSet, and Bloomberg. Claude for PowerPoint reads your brand guidelines, your template, your fonts and colors, then creates presentations that actually look like they came from your company. Claude Design, launched in April 2026, lets you collaborate with Claude to create polished visual work, designs, prototypes, slides, marketing materials, export to convey, PDF, PowerPoint, or HTML, included with Pro, Max, Team, and Enterprise subscriptions. Claude for Small Business, launched May 2026. A single toggle installer puts Claude inside QuickBooks, PayPal, HubSpot, Canva, DocuSign, Google Workspace, and Microsoft 365, and the Claude Partner Network. Launched March 2026 with an initial $100 million commitment, over 1,000 certified partners, a growing ecosystem of experts who help enterprises deploy Claude at scale. This is not a chatbot company. This is an infrastructure company. TP, the hidden revolution. Now we need to talk about the thing most people are missing. CP, the Model Context Protocol. Think of the original AI tools as islands, smart, powerful, but isolated. They could answer questions. They could write text, but they couldn't actually do things in the world. MCP changes that. Model Context Protocol is a universal standard for connecting AI to external systems. Think of it as USB-C for artificial intelligence. One standard connector, infinite possibilities. With MCP, Claude can connect to GitHub and read, write, and manage your code repositories. It can connect to your Slack workspace and read conversations, summarize threads, draft responses. It can connect to databases and run queries directly. It can connect to cloud APIs, enterprise tools, calendar systems, and here's the crucial point. MCP is an open standard. That means any developer in the world can build an MCP connector. Any company can publish an MCP server that exposes their tools to Claude. The Claude Marketplace, launched in March 2026, already lists thousands of connectors. This is how AI stops being a tool and becomes infrastructure. When Claude can connect to every system in an enterprise, it stops being something your team uses occasionally. It becomes the operating system your entire organization runs on. And Anthropic built this standard that makes this possible. In 10 years, MCP may be remembered as the most important thing Anthropic ever created. The safety mission. Let's come back to the question that started all of this. What happens when AI becomes smarter than human? Anthropic doesn't pretend they have the answer, but they have built the most serious research program in the world to find it. Mechanistic interpretively. Research into why AI models produce the outputs they do. Not just what they say, but how they think. What circuits inside the model activate to produce a specific response. This is genuinely hard science, Nobel Prize level hard. And Anthropic has published more research on it than any other lab. Alignment research. How do you keep an AI system aligned with human values as it becomes more capable? This is the central problem of artificial intelligence. Anthropic has more papers, more researchers, and more funding dedicated to it than anyone else. And in 2026, Anthropic launched the Anthropic Institute, a dedicated organization focused on AI governance, policy research, and safety frameworks for policymakers around the world. The company also donated its battery alignment toolkit to Meridian Labs, making its safety research tools available to the entire research community. These are not marketing moves. They are genuine investments in the problem that Dario Amodei left OpenAI to solve. And here is the uncomfortable truth that Anthropic admits openly. They believe they might be building one of the most dangerous technologies in human history. And they are building it anyway. Because if powerful AI is coming regardless, it is better to have safety-focused labs at the frontier than to cede that ground to companies that don't care. That is not a comfortable position, but it is an honest one. Gates Foundation, Goldman Sachs, and what's next? Let's talk about where Anthropic is going. In May 2026, Anthropic announced a $200 million partnership with the Gates Foundation, focused on using AI to accelerate global health and development initiatives. A $1.5 billion enterprise rollout venture with Goldman Sachs, Blackstone, and Hellman and Friedman, a partnership with SpaceX to access additional computing capacity, and preparations for a potential IPO as early as late 2026. The revenue trajectory says everything. Anthropic projects roughly $70 billion in revenue in 2028, with approximately $17 billion in cash flow. The company expects to stop cash burn in 2027 and reach full profitability in 2028. For a company that was generating $1 billion 18 months ago, those numbers are extraordinary. But the most extraordinary number is the one hiding inside all of this. Anthropic now has over 1,000 companies spending more than $1 million per year on Claude. That number doubled from 500 to 1,000 in under 2 months. When you have 1,000 enterprise customers, each spending more than $1 million, you don't have a startup anymore. You have a platform. Why this matters for you? Let's bring this home. Whether you're a developer, a business owner, a student, or someone who just uses AI occasionally, here is what the Anthropic story means for you. AI is no longer a novelty. It is infrastructure. Like electricity, like the internet, like the mobile phone. And the company building the most trusted version of that infrastructure is a 5-year-old startup that started with a question about what happens when AI becomes smarter than humans. They didn't answer the question, but they built the most serious attempt to make sure the answer is something we can live with. For developers, the message is clear. Claude Code is not a nice to have. It is the coding partner that can work 14 hours unsupervised and deliver. Learn it, use it, build with it. For enterprises, the message is equally clear. Claude is the only frontier AI model available on AWS, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure simultaneously. You don't have to choose a cloud ecosystem. Claude runs everywhere you already are. For everyone else, the message is this. The AI you interact with is not just a product. It is a reflection of the values of the company that built it. Anthropic chose to refuse the Pentagon's surveillance demands. Anthropic chose to not release Mythos publicly because it was too powerful. Anthropic chose to publish its safety research so the entire world could learn from it. Those choices have a cost, and Anthropic is making them anyway. In an industry full of companies racing to be first, that makes Anthropic something unusual. A company trying to be right. The future, we are at the beginning of something that has no historical parallel. In 2023, Claude was a chatbot. A good one, but a chatbot. In 2026, Claude is infrastructure, the AI layer underneath hundreds of thousands of businesses. In 2028, if Anthropic's projections are right, Claude will be generating $70 billion in revenue, more than most countries' entire tech industries. And we are still at the beginning. Claude Mythos, the model too powerful to release, will eventually have its capabilities matched or surpassed by future models. What happens then? Claude Code is already doing work that would require teams of engineers. What happens when it gets 10 times more capable? The autonomous Asker Eisen is at 14 hours today. What happens when it reaches a week? A month? These are not science fiction questions. They are engineering questions. And Anthropic's researchers are working on them right now. The future of intelligence is being built in San Francisco by a team that left the most famous AI lab in history because they thought the race was moving too fast. And paradoxically, they are now at the front of the race, not by going fastest, but by building something that people trust enough to run the world on. And that is the story of Anthropic, the company that asks what happens when AI becomes smarter than humans and decided to be the ones who find out.